All right, friends, welcome back again to another episode of Tactical Enlightenment, our custom battle series. Again, we're going to continue with our Vlandia series, showing this new crossbow Vanguard tactic that I created. You can see we've given ourselves 60% crossbow, even though we're outnumbered against the Khazate here by almost 130 troops. We're going to be fighting in an open area. All of these things should theoretically favor Khazate in a dramatic measure. But again, with our lethal crossbow, I think we're going to be able to smash the Khazate, or at least have victory here. Both sides have all their unit trees checked except for the recruits, and then each side also has the one mercenary tier. So again, we're going to be using our crossbow in a unique manner here. We're going to be setting up effectively a crossbow vanguard at the front of the battle, trying to do major damage, deal out major damage to the enemy, and then if and when it's attacked, we'll be using that division as a square in a defensive knot. So the one advantage I do have in this situation is I have a little bit of terrain here. I've got some elevation to work with, but we're also going to be using our crossbow in that defensive knot while the 5th and 8th crossbow divisions shoot and help support that 4th division. So again, I'll run through the units here as I set them up. The 7th and the 3rd cav, those are usually defensive cav. I'm going to use them to create shield walls to block, to protect our troops. The 6th is pikes, and in particular I want these to be sort of the Volgiers. I want them protected because we're going to put them behind our 1st infantry, which are guys with shields and heavy armor. Meanwhile, again, you see the 4th crossbow. These are going to be our highest ranked crossbow. So I'll set them up there, and then we can zoom in. But you'll see I have them set to heavy armor, and then preference to that kind of troops, so that all of them have this big Pavis shield, right? Almost all of them, anyways. We don't have like an unfair number of those troops. There's only 114 of them out of our 500 troops, but that unit's going to be instrumental in this battle. Again, the 1st is heavy infantry. We're going to set them up at the front. The 6th, that's our shock troops, the Volgiers and the other pikemen, they'll be set up behind the 1st as protection, and then we'll be using the 5th and 8th crossbowmen divisions as effectively supporting divisions for our primary line. Now look how far out in front I'm setting this division of crossbow, right? These guys have good armor, they've got a shield to block some of the attacks from the Khazate, but they're going to be essentially the most important part of our battle here. The 2nd cav is usually my attacking cav, right? I set those guys up to be the kind of cav that I send in to kill the enemy. And the 3rd and the 7th, again, we'll use as shield walls. These cav will be highly defensive in nature. They will be used to sort of repel enemy charges with cav, and then also to absorb arrows, right? Somebody's got to eat some arrows in this battle. We're up against, some 300 or 250 horse archers. These unlucky fellows drew the short sticks, and they get to take arrows to the face. So I'm just sort of lining up my archer lines here, my crossbow lines, so that they have a nice line of sight, right? If you're working with elevation like this, you want to make sure that your troops are slightly elevated above your opponent. That way they can shoot further, and all of those units will have a nice line of sight, right? They're in loose formation, and that loose formation, of course, that means that the enemy arrows, a lot of the enemy arrows are hitting the dirt. If they shoot at one of the guys and it misses, but your units are packed tightly, well, you're kind of fucked, because those arrows will just hit somebody else standing right next to them, right? So we're going to have our crossbow, all 3 crossbow divisions, in spread or loose formation. Meanwhile, you see I sort of spread out the cavalry on that left flank, because usually the Khazate sort of circles from our left flank. 2nd cav is just in front here. Right? I'll be dragging them behind me at times. Other times I'll be using them to charge enemy cavalry charges. Now I want my 4th archers, right? We're going to call these guys, I keep calling them archers. We're going to call this the 4th Vanguard. It's all crossbowmen, but in this case, this is a vanguard of our army. I want these guys shooting as early as possible. I may not have them shoot the whole battle, but I want them shooting as soon as the horse archers are within reasonable range. Most crossbowmen typically have a longer range than archers in the game, which is, I don't think that's historically accurate. I think it's actually the other way around. Archers had longer range than crossbow, and then historically, crossbow did more damage to armored troops, right? It was a shorter distance, more powerful shot, but it usually wasn't longer range. Nevertheless, that's what the game has decided it's going to be, so that's the tactics So we'll match our tactics to that perhaps incorrect setup to history. So here come their horse archers, right? We're defending ourselves as well. I can easily get shot off my horse. In fact, I admit this is the second filming of this battle. The first one I got shot to pieces early on, and then some nasty Consguard fucking one-shot me with his pole arm. But it's not like we're running this battle 40 times. This battle should be highly repeatable with this strategy, as long as you perform it right. I'm still fairly new to this tactic. It will take you some practice as well, but I don't think it's the most complicated tactic out there. And I think any player with a sense of patience and willing to try it a half dozen times should be able to master this tactic. So you see some of their cav coming in here. All I want to do is kind of slow these guys down. If there's a huge cav charge against our crossbow, we would want to counter it with the 2nd Division here. Right, so I'm actually moving my infantry forward just because there's a lot of the enemy cav right here. I sort of want them to intercept some of these lancers, give them a wall of shields to deal with while my crossbowmen shoot. If these cav back off, we'll probably pull our infantry back. So we will pull them back here. They had sort of an initial cav charge, and again, that was the whole point of dragging this 2nd cav behind me. You see I've got this big, strong, armored 2nd cav division following me. I can also assign this 2nd cav now to attack these horse archers. I don't want their horse archers just running unimpeded through the battle, right? All those guys have their shields out, shield wall formation, and those armored knights should slow down the enemy a little bit. So now what I'm doing is I'm moving my crossbow forward. You see this lancer group is charging them, but they're in square. Right? So all those tough archers are now highly protected by their square. And this is probably, I hadn't really played around with it a lot before in custom battles, but this is probably one of the most overpowered tactics in the game, is you have this unit that is lethal at range, and yet almost impervious to melee if you form them up in this nasty shield wall. You see them down there in a big clump, 93 guys. And they're not shooting, but they're like almost indestructible in this giant fucking shield wall, square rather, with just these barn doors on every side of them, right? It's very hard for enemy cav to puncture them, very hard for enemy archers to really hurt them. And now that the enemy cav is kind of nearby, we can use our infantry to periodically charge, right? Anytime they get kind of tied up on the square, we just have our 1st and 6th infantry here just charge them. Meanwhile, my 2nd cav continues to pursue their horse archers, right? We're just sort of keeping them busy. They're also getting shot by these 2 protected crossbow waves back here, right? My other 2 crossbow waves are highly protected. Again, the enemy's very, very focused on the square, and that's precisely what we want. All right, so I'm moving my infantry forward, and the crossbowmen now I'm spreading out behind. They can now open fire. Right, now that a lot of the enemy cav is dispersed, we can actually start to deal with the enemy vanguard here. Khazate infantry is some of the worst in the game, but it's still a formidable amount, and we were heavily outnumbered in this battle. But I have no reason to charge, right? As long as my 4th are still shooting. Now some of them are out. I see some of the guys just holding their sword. If they're on open fire and they're holding their sword, that means they're out of ammunition. They're no longer a crossbowman, right? They're basically an infantry, a member of the infantry, right? But they're in a group. Some of them are still firing, and so we're going to let those guys expend their bolts before we do anything offensive with them. They got stampeded a little bit there by horses, but not on a major effect. All right, so Vanguard coming in. We're going to do a little bit of kiting here. We're moving our infantry back. And then what we're going to do is we're going to form our 4th, this heavy crossbow unit, into a square. Well, I won't quite have time to do it, so we'll adjust tactics on the fly, and we'll send these 3 different infantry units into combat. I say 3 different infantry units. It's the 1st, 6th, and the new infantry division, so to speak, are these Pavish crossbow. They're out of ammunition, but they have like this whole second wind to them, right? Like a sprinter who accelerates to the finish line. After these guys have done dealing death at range, now they're holding their giant barn doors, they're charging forward, and they're a very capable infantryman, especially when they're supported by the rest of the infantry. We now outnumber their infantry, right? We've effectively turned our 80 or 90 crossbowmen into very solid infantry, and their infantry line is overwhelmed, right? Little different tactics here. I got some guys routing. You know, Khazate is never an easy battle, especially when there's 130 of them, 130 more of them than your side. But our guys are now pouring forward. They're now starting to puncture the enemy lines. They're starting to reach the archers. Some of the archers are losing their head, right? We're supporting them a little bit. But at this stage, this battle is basically over. Their infantry line broke. Their archers are backpedaling. They've got angry puppies, crossbowmen in their face, right? This is a very bad day for the Khazate. Of course, our cav is still up. We still have some of our other units that are survived. The Khonsguard is the real difficult thing. If you do any custom battles against the Khazate, or you fight them in major battles, you want to prioritize killing them as early as you can, right? Because they're very deadly both with arrows and with their glaive. And of course, they're difficult to catch and kill. So hopefully this helps people. I mean, of course, you're not going to be fighting Khazate very early on in a typical campaign, right? Vlandia starts on the other side of the map, but hopefully that shows you that even hugely outnumbered here, we were able to fucking totally rout a very strong Khazate force using our Vanguard crossbow. We will now sweep into part 2 of today's episode. We're going to go immediately into a battle against the Empire. Right? We're going to keep the same numbers. You can see on the bottom, they outnumber us by almost 140 troops. And again, I'm just going through the troop tree here. We're giving them one mercenary unit. That's their Leroy or something like that. I can't really pronounce it. But we're going to give them kind of a standard Imperial Army here with some horse archers. We'll give them an Imperial-looking warrior, and we'll keep our configuration the same. Right, we'll fight in the same area, daylight. That way you can see all the tactics, see it all playing out. And then we'll be able to, again, show you the same tactic using our Vlandian Vanguard. That's a better name for it. I like that. The Vlandian Vanguard. It's a unique Vanguard, right? Typically anybody thinks of a Vanguard, we're talking infantry here. But used correctly, this crossbow Vanguard is deadly, right? You have to think about it. They have basically two different stages of the battle. Early on, they're dealing out major damage at range, the furthest range in the game with their crossbow. And then later in the battle, after all their arrows are expended, they become a very vital part of the army as an infantry corps, right? Against certain attacks, they'll be in a shield wall. Against other attacks, they'll be in a square. And then they'll be either supporting infantry or they'll be distracting from the infantry vanguard and destroying the enemy after they either pass the square, or if they come up to the square, the enemy is effectively just suiciding themselves while the rest of the units pummel them. So again, we're looking for a little bit of elevation advantage here. Anytime that you have elevation, you want to use it, right? Whether you're the attacker or the defensive. Again, our 7th and 3rd, those are supporting cavalry wings. They're very small wings. I still want to have those units with the ability to micromanage in a battle like this. You can see, again, we're hugely outnumbered. But again, I think if we use superior tactics, it's not going to matter. It's quite a ways to run. I'm looking how far the enemy is away, and I like this stream here. Anytime you can use terrain that slows the enemy down as they approach you, it's hugely beneficial. If you have a swamp or a bunch of trees in the enemy's way where their cav is going to run into trees and get slowed down, you want to take advantage of that. In this case, there's that little stream. We'll be able to have their infantry sort of cross that. Well, infantry and cavalry, they'll have to cross that little stream. And when they do so, of course, those units are slowed down. The game has a momentum system. Cavalry that are standing still with their lance or moving very slowly don't do a lot of damage, right? So if they're running at full speed in the open grass here, they're going to do a lot more damage. That's quite a few horse archers, and a lot of times in the game, the AI will send their horse archers first to just sort of try to deal some damage before the main vanguard arrives. We're going to focus on it, though. We're not just going to charge the enemy while these little horse archers are having their way with us. What we're doing here basically is creating a defensive ring with our cav, our 3rd and 7th, and infantry up front. And now we're going to try to trap and destroy these horse archers. So I'm dragging one horse one cav division behind me. We're going to use this rock and try to slam the door shut when this cav division tries to retreat. You see them there in a big shield wall. They're starting to retreat, and I have this big line of heavy horse just waiting for them as they try to escape, right? These guys are like the little old lady cashier at Walmart that makes you show you the receipt, right? We're making these fucks show us your receipt here, or we'll behead you fucks, right? That's what we're doing here. You see these guys are all bottled up. They're being shot. They're being attacked by cav from behind, in front. It's a very bad situation for the horse archers to be in. Right? We can throw a few javelins. Whoops, you kill my own guys a lot. We can give these guys basically a little parting gift here on their way out. So their main infantry line is actually pouring up a lot faster than I expected, so we're going to adapt. Right? I got my 4th here in the front, and just like earlier battles, you've seen me do this. We're squaring those guys up. They've been shooting this whole time. I'm sending cav on the other side to intercept their cav charge. They're definitely going to do some damage. The Imperial cavalry is actually outstanding. Very, very strong, very tough armor, and they're capable of charging. We do have our 2 different crossbow divisions back here, and it's critical that we protect them. Now, the enemy infantry, look at, they're all bottled up on our square, so this is where the strategy really takes effect. While they're bottled up, while they're distracted, in come our 1st and our 6th. That's Volgiers, that's tough infantrymen. Those guys pour in while the enemy is sort of distracted with our square here, and they mangle everybody who's trying to attack the square. This is really where the tactic pays off big time. I'm still concerned about the heavy cav they've got back here. I've assigned my 2nd cav division to attack them directly, but the primary thing that we're trying to focus on is destroying the enemy vanguard. They're 200 melee troops, very tough melee, Manabliatons, legionnaires, and we have now basically 3 infantry divisions focusing on it. And you can think of it as, okay, so the 4th is now an infantry division. It's in a square. That used to be our shooting crossbow. And then we have the 1st and 6th infantry, these Volgiers and sergeants. They're attacking all of the Imperial guys sort of on the edges of that square, right? It's like we're stiff-arming them with one hand and punching them with the other. They still have horse archers back here, right? We're dealing with multiple threats in this battle. Because we're so heavily outnumbered, right, we're definitely not just going to wade through the enemy here. But now at this stage, we've destroyed their vanguard. We have to deal with these horse archers. A lot of their primary heavy cav is greatly weakened as well. And then eventually we'll have to deal with their long archer line. I can see it down there spread in a big long ring. But what do we have, right? Now we have crossbowmen that are either out of ammo or low on ammo, and they have shields, right? So if we need to, we can approach the enemy in shield wall, right? We can a whole nother use for this Vlandian crossbow vanguard. See all the archers down there, and that's a perfect situation, perfect formation rather for the enemy. They're in a big long spread. That's how you want to set up your archers in a battle like this. Unfortunately for them, they're highly outnumbered. They have very little or no infantry support, and much of their cav is dead as well. So I can see it's 159 guys. And all we're going to do is focus our firepower here. Anybody who could still shoot in the 5th and 8th will be allowed to shoot. And then we'll bring those guys in as well, right? So we have something like, we'll do a quick count. It's about 250 troops. Just mathematically, the enemy is fucked here, right? They have less than 60% of the troops that we have left. We still have the 2nd Cav Division that we can definitely come down here and attack it with. But whatever attack we do on these archers, we're going to do it in a concentrated manner, right? I will be dragging Cav through them. They're just continuing to expel bolts on us, but they're doing so at range, right? At long range, uphill like that, they're not doing major damage. Meanwhile, my other units are now in shield wall, approaching them, and they're very angry. They're tired of being shot. They're tired of seeing their comrades shot at. Here they come, right? Big shield walls, Cav in front of shield wall. The enemy's going to be able to pick some guys off, but now that the Cav is in there, we send them on charge. We're going to spread out our infantry division here, including our crossbow vanguard, and have them charge. And we're just going to eat these archers up. Now you see the death spam is all us dying right now, but that's because we're closing. Now that we've closed the distance, now the enemy's fucked. I can just roll our 4th crossbow vanguard and a big shield wall straight up this archer line as our troops just filter in behind them, massacring anything that's moving. You can see the pikemen and Volgiers are getting kills still. That's because those guys are following this line of shield walls, and the enemy's basically getting eaten up like by a big snake, just eating it up from the bottom to the top of this archer group. I'm dragging my second cav behind me at this stage, and predictably the enemy routes. Behead a few of their insolent fucks, and hopefully again this shows you another example of the power of this Vlandian Vanguard here. We'll do some bad crossbow, or a few bad javelin throws. I swear I've gotten worse at javelin throws as the game's gotten on. It's really strange, but I digress. Hopefully again this shows you how you can play Vlandia and use their crossbow in a unique way to totally dominate the enemy. Thanks for watching. Please comment if you're interested in more like this. You can leave critiques too if you think there's things I can improve. I'm always trying to improve, and I'll see you friends next time.